Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Baithak podcast. I'm your host DD and joining me once again is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we will be looking back at the first two rounds of the Formula E World Championship, which was held on the 26th and 27th of February. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant, it's great to have you back here, and what an exciting weekend for Formula E. A lot of action going on, a lot of things to talk about. So let's get to it.
Hello, Diriyah. Yes, definitely. It's been a great weekend for Formula E. The first night race in Formula E history, two races, in fact, and it's been a great weekend for Formula E. The kind of action we saw and the kind of mixed results we saw across the grid. So we'll talk about it, and it's a great start to the season.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, for those who haven't, who didn't tune in for the Formula E races, the results were such. Round one, Nick De Vries dominated both qualifying and the race, finishing first, followed by Edward Mortara in second and Mitch Evans in third. Round two went to Sam Bird, Robin Fries in second, and Antonio Felix da Costa in third. But that was not the story. It was not just simple. Let's talk about round one and the qualifying issues that the drivers faced in that particular round.
Yes, definitely. So let's start with round one. And Nick DeVry absolutely dominated the entire round. Two practice sessions, he topped them both. Qualifying, he won his group, got that point for topping the group, and he went on to win the Super Bowl and got 3 points for that. In the race, he won the race from pole to the finish line. Absolute domination.
And it was not an easy race to win. There were a couple yellow flags, restarts. A lot of times he was under attack, but he managed.
Exactly,
He managed
exactly.
really well to win that
And
race. I think, and the only point he didn't pick up in like in that race or on that day was just the fastest lap point for the race that went to I think Stoffel Van Doon at the end of the day. Otherwise, it was a perfect weekend.
so yeah, so let's get to qualifying now. So the main talking point of qualifying was the three cars that could not set the fastest lap. Or rather, they set the fastest laps, but the fastest laps were not counted because they set it under yellow flags. Now we can argue that you can't drive your car fast during yellow flags, and you need to slow down and all that. But these guys did slow down. Nico Mueller, Nick Cassidy, and Tom Blomqvist did slow down for the yellow flags. But the thing here is, we mentioned in the previous episode how the Formula E weekend works, the qualifying works, and these guys only had 2 laps to set their qualifying time. Now, what usually happens in Formula E is the first lap the driver takes is a warm up lap, so it's quite slow. It's about 3-4 seconds of the pace of the main lap, and then they go for the push lap. Now, even if you get your push lap, start your push lap, you get 2 sectors in your push lap, and even if you slow down for the final sector, which they did for the yellow flag, your your lap time will be faster than the warm up lap, right? So because of that, because they improved their lap time under yellow flags, essentially, their faster laps were not counted, and their warm up laps were the final laps. What this triggered is a chain of events, not too long, but so Mitch Evans was already out of his car because he was not going into Super Pole because he didn't have a good enough time after these three guys completed their laps. But since their lap times got deleted, Mitch Evans was called up to do the Super Pole. He was out of his car. He was essentially cooling down and reading the data, having his debrief, all such things, waiting for his media commitments and whatnot. And he was called back. He had to get back into the car, get back into that rhythm and mindset, and that delayed the qualifying by about 10-15 minutes, I think. But it's a very strange thing because a driver has got out of his car, a driver maybe in his motorhome, and they get called back. So it's a strange thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely it's strange, but I think the talking point still lies with the fact that should should lap times be deleted even after the drivers have followed the rules of caution and safety car and all of that. Was there any other comments by the Formula E administration or like FIA after this event, or is this still under consideration? Is it something? So, is there any action that is going to be taken regarding these rules and regulations in Formula E?
No, I don't think there's going to be anything, because the situation here was that even though the car slowed down, but it was still a yellow flag situation, right? So in that case, we can't help it, because the regulations dictate that the cars who improve their times under yellow flag get the lap times deleted. So it's just how the sport works, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, I guess it worked in favor of Mitch Evans since he finished third after a really grueling race between him, Edward Mortara, and the fourth and fifth. I don't remember who finished fourth and fifth, but I watched the race and it was pretty close. Uh, it all depended on the time. They timed their attack mode activation, and then Mortara overtook Verline and Evans for a stunning three wide double pass, which was so exciting to watch. And I think we saw the replay like multiple times throughout the race, even after the race. And I remember Eduardo Mortara going after the race that he's a dad, like
Yeah,
telling the media that he's a dad, and his heart was beating fast and he
yeah.
was scared. But it was definitely really exciting for both him and all of us. Um, all right, so let's dive into round two and what happened there. So round two was not without drama. A lot more drama in round two than round one. And even before the qualifying started, we had a big crash for Eduardo Mortara, right?
Yes.
We're just glad he's doing well. He's he's fine. But let's talk about what happened there and and the chain of events that resulted after that. Tell us more about why Mercedes and Venturi were not allowed in qualifying and all that transpired after the crash.
Firstly, obviously, as you said, we are quite thankful that Eduardo Mortara is safe, is healthy, and that again goes to the safety measures that have come ahead in the sport over the years. So what essentially happened was Eduardo Mortara was taking a practice start at the end of qualifying, at the end of the free practice. So his front brakes, which are made by the which are made by Spark Racing Technologies and are spec brakes across the series, failed. Those are hydraulic brakes, and they failed. So his rear brakes, which are made by the drivetrain manufacturer, which is for Venturi,
In
for
this case,
Venturi, it was
Mercedes.
Mercedes. And so that rear brake, which is a brake by wire system, did not kick in. The software had a glitch, and his rear brakes also did not work. So essentially, he had no brakes, and he went straight into the wall. So that's where it started. Mercedes couldn't prove what the issue was, and that they could they could rectify it before the start of quali, because between the practice and quali it's only about an hour. So they had to do the investigation and the result and the rectification, everything. So they couldn't do it, but they did it for the race. They had enough time to do it for the race, and we know that it was nothing technical, it was nothing mechanic, it was just a small software, just a parameter that they had to change, and it got rectified within a few minutes. So, and they did race. Nick DeVries, the championship leader, did have a very good race. As he couldn't set a time, he started in 18th, I think, and he ended up ninth. So that is climbing up 9 places. So it's good that they could race. So yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it was kind of heartbreaking for Nick DeVries, especially since he had a great first day in Formula E season 7. Uh, wasn't allowed to take part in qualifying. Both Mercs and Venturis weren't allowed, but Nick DeVries did have a decent race after that. However, the qualifying results were really interesting, and we saw two teams who are usually at the back of the grid fight it out for Super Pole. What can you tell us about that, Vedant?
Yes, so again, Formula E qualifying, it cannot happen without drama. Rene Rast and Mitch Evans failed to make failed to start their fastest lap. Failed to finish their fastest lap, their fast lap in qualifying by a few seconds because the cars ahead of them were slow, and since the grid is too closely packed, they couldn't finish it, which shows that the cars want to go towards later in the session. And see again, if Mitch Evans or Rene Rast had gone a few seconds earlier, a minute earlier, for their fast laps, for the warm up lap and fast laps, they could have gotten a competitive time and could have been in, even Super Bowl or even top 10. But they couldn't get a fast lap in. Their warm up lap was counted as their quali lap, and they ended up in the back of the field because, as we mentioned earlier, warm up laps are 3 or 4 seconds slower than regular qualifying laps. So Robin Frines took pole and Sam Bird came third in qualifying. But the talk of the story of the day in qualifying was Neo 333 and Dragon Penske, all four cars making Super Pole. Now, these cars, as we mentioned in the earlier episode, these cars are not Super Pole favorites. They were not Super Pole favorites. These are essentially backmarkers. And as we can see, because Dragon got their best points haul in 4 seasons, and we are only 2 races in. So you can see how from how far back they have come. And Sergio Sete Camara was second in Super Bowl, and it was a great show for the backmarkers. It was a great opportunity, but as is with Formula E, they got those times because, like, I won't say 100% because of that, but the a factor was they got their quali times later in the session, and because of that they got a faster track. So I think consistency throughout the season will be key for them once again, and getting a quali time at the end, and this is a fluke. I think, I may be harsh, but yeah.
I mean, absolutely. But at the same time, I mean, the people who run Formula will be happy because this is essentially why they have the qualifying format the way it is. Even though they have received so much backlash from the drivers and the teams, they have stuck to the new qualifying format um, where the team that is last in the championship order, the drivers who are last in the championship order go last, giving them a more evolved track, allowing them to set a faster time essentially. And this worked this weekend, and I think Formula E will be very happy with that. But I mean, yeah, great stuff from Sam Bird winning the race. Like I mentioned before, Robin France finishing second, but the race was not without drama either. A lot happened in the race. Walk us through it.
The main talking point of the race was Alex Lynn's accident. He came in contact with Mitch Evans. Alex Lynn's car rolled over, and he was essentially, the halo saved him, and the rollover hoop saved him. But kudos to Mitch Evans because he stepped out of his car, sacrificed his race to go and check on Alex Lynn. So it was great showing of sportsmanship from him. And so this incident came just behind another incident which involved Maxi Gunter, Tom Blomqvist, and Sebastian Buemi. So Sebastian Buemi came to a halt. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Sebastian Buemi came to a halt earlier in the race, but Maxi Gunter and Tom Blomqvist made contact, and I think Maxi spun or something like that, and just behind them, Alex Lynn and Mitch Evans had their crash. So the race was, due to Alex's crash. The race was brought to a premature end. the race was red flagged, and that caused a lot of penalties to be given out, which is a shame because Jean-Eric Verne, who was running third, ended up 12th because of that penalty. And Rene Rast and Tom Blomqvist got the same penalties. Now, what happened here is, since the race was red flagged and came to a premature end, these guys couldn't get their attack mode for the second time. And since attack mode is mandatory to use two times, you can't ignore it second time, right? So since they didn't use it, they got what was supposed to be drive-through penalties, but since the race ended, it was converted to 24-second penalties. And since the race was, yellow flagged and then red flagged, so the grid was all packed up, and 24 seconds means a lot in Formula E when the grid is packed up. And Jean-Eric Verne, oh my, he went from third to 12th. He lost 15 points because he essentially didn't have time to use his second attack mode. And
Yeah, especially it hurt him a lot, in even in like the championship points with his teammate Antonio Felix da Costa taking third. Taking a lot of points himself, not having to take that penalty. But it's really weird to think, like, why they received the penalty, because the race was cut short. The drivers still had time to had the race not been cut short, the drivers would have still had time to activate their attack mode. And if, like, I don't see why you would penalize someone for something that was not in their control, essentially. Um, so it's really weird, and I think in my opinion, Formula E should reevaluate the rules, the red flag rules, essentially, and not penalize the driver as heavily as they have done in the case of Antonio Felix da Costa and sorry, John Eric One and a couple others. Um, because it doesn't really make sense to me. Maybe a 3 second time penalty would make more sense. Given that they could have still activated it maybe before the red flag came out, if that was the case. But it's hard to say. What do you think about it?
yeah, I think it's like we have heard complaints from the fans and from the drivers themselves, from the teams, that penalties in Formula E are given around like chocolates, essentially, chocolates in a kindergarten class. And I think it's a very weird situation, but I think the balance between regulations and common sense is a very hard balance to bring in motorsports, because if you give a penalty to someone and you don't give a penalty to a different person in another race, because of the situation of the thing, it's like, I don't know, it's not exactly regulations, it's going further than regulations. So I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it does set a precedence, and I know what you're talking about, and we have struggled with this in Formula One, but I don't think this is an issue where there needs to, like, it's not a very nuanced issue, to me at least. It's pretty simple. The race was cut short. The drivers didn't take the attack mode. Had the race not been cut short, I'm pretty sure the drivers would have activated the attack mode for the second time, as they have done for the last 6 seasons basically, or since whenever attack mode was introduced
yeah,
in Formula E.
definitely.
Uh,
Like Jean-Eric Verne was in a heated fight with his teammate Antonio Felix da Costa. They made contact a few times, and uh, Antonio Felix da Costa ended up third. So obviously Jean-Eric Verne would have used the attack mode if he had the time. So yeah, let's see what Formula E does about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, but I hope Formula E like looks into it at least, and there's some response from them, because it's a very weird situation that we have here. But all in all, a great race weekend, a lot of drama, a lot of things to be excited about. Uh, but like let's look into the future. Let's look into what's next for Formula E. We have a couple weeks before the next race. What can we expect from the rest of the season, Vedant?
So a lot of performance is going to change because a lot of the teams did not bring their season 7 drivetrains to the race to Saudi Arabia.
I thought it was just I thought it was just Techeetah who didn't upgrade their drivetrains for the first race. I thought all the other teams were able to do that.
I'm not sure about that. I may be wrong, but as I have learned, uh, like not all, but a lot of the teams did not upgrade their drivetrains, and they will upgrade them for Rome, which is going to be like it might change the performance. So, like now, let's talk about how competitive Formula E is at the moment. Only BMW has not scored a single point in the two races. So out of the 12 teams, 11 teams have scored points in only two races. That we don't see that in Formula 1 in even 10 teams and 21 races.
Throughout the whole season, we didn't have Williams score a single point last season. Over 17 races. So it's very surprising. And it like we mentioned in the last podcast, this Formula E themselves said that this is probably the most competitive grid in motorsport and the most competitive grid that they've ever had in the championship itself. So I mean, I would encourage everyone that if they want to catch an hour of racing, an hour of very exciting racing, they should tune into a Formula E race, and it's a great experience.
So yeah, talking about the coming races now, we've seen from the two races now Dragon, Neo, and Venturi. These three teams are quick. Venturi with their Mercedes powertrains are super quick. It's like it's like the racing point of Formula One essentially. They are customer teams from Mercedes, and both these teams are quick. Mercedes and Venturi, Dragon and Neo were looking quick this weekend. Dragon has new partnership with Bosch Technologies. It's supposed to be a long-term partnership, so that's exciting. And now the thing about like as we talked about BMW Andretti not scoring a single point, right? Maxi Gunter has a five-place grid penalty for the next race, and he has retired from both the grounds this in Diriyah. So it's a very strange season for him, strange start to the season. And Alex Lynn, obviously, he was involved in crashes in both the races. In the first race, he got involved with Sam Bird. Second race, obviously, he had his crash with Mitch Evans, and so you know it's very exciting to see going into Rome. I'm not sure about this, but I think Rome is going to have a new track layout this season. We didn't go to Rome last season, and they are changing the layout which used to be there before. So a new layout, new things for the teams to explore.
And after two rounds, we have a really close championship order going into the rest of the rounds. We have Jaguar Racing at 40 points. We have Mercedes EQ at 36, really close, especially after that Nick DeVries win and the disappointing second round. But then we have Envision Version Racing and Dragon Penske Autosport. A little surprising for them, tied at 22 points for third place. Then we have Audi Sport, ABD Scheffler on 19, Rocket Venturi on 18, and DS Techeetah and Nissan EDAMS on 15 and 14. Kind of disappointing from Mahindra Racing in Diriyah, scoring only 6 points over the two races. I was hoping they would score more, but we can only hope for the best going into the upcoming rounds.
Yes, exactly.
And for the drivers, we still have Nick DeVries leading the championship with 32 points and Sam Bird in 25 in second place. It's pretty close down there from third until all the way down to 15th almost. Not a lot of points dividing those drivers, going from 18 all the way down to 4 points. But we know things can change around in Formula E really quickly. So, we got to stay tuned for that.
Exactly. Formula E, the coming races, the upcoming season, it's going to be super, super fun. And I mean, it's only getting started, with the future coming along, the 2022 regulations, in the team site on the 2022 regulations, it's going to be pretty awesome to see what these teams can get done for the in the season.
Absolutely. Well, anything else, Vedant? Anything else from your side that we should look out for in the upcoming races in Formula E?
Well, okay. So here's a stat. Sam Bird has won. Sam Bird has won a race in every single Formula E season, and he's the only one to do it. And he has completed it. He has maintained his streak with the win in Diriyah, the race too. So I don't. I hope he gets more wins and doesn't fall back. Like I think he did last season. He couldn't score a lot of points last season, but I don't know. I'm pretty excited for like that's all I can say. I'm pretty excited for Formula E.
All right, then we'll wrap up this podcast right here, right now. Thank you, Vedant, for joining us today once again to talk Formula E. It was great to have you here, and we'll again catch up with you on our next podcast. A little word for our listeners: if you have somehow found this podcast and have made it all the way through, thank you so much for listening to us. Please do let us know what you would want us to talk about, and all your feedback is deeply appreciated. Thank you so much for listening once again. We'll catch you on the next one.